Well, hello, 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 and welcome to another session of Write Club, where we are writing our books 21 days to first draft and 21 days to published. In fact, if we're committed to the journey of writing 1,657 words per day, over 21 days, you get to 35,007 words, which is a book. You can choose your book to be smaller or larger, but that is the average size book. And at the same time, you also want to be doing the next element of your book, which is the marketing, which is the putting it out, which is the telling your story, whether it be on podcasts or TV shows or on your blog or on your website. So today we're going to actually look at the narrative memoir, which also actually has the exact same template as a fiction novel. So whether it be about your own life, sort of an autobiographical journey that is narrative, that has a narrative. It's not teaching. You're not giving anyone tools or techniques for living their life. You're just telling your own story. That has to have a certain arc, a certain flow, and a certain rhythm and tempo. As we said before, the difference between an educational book and a memoir is an educational book, such as a prescriptive nonfiction or a teaching memoir, is that the narrative memoir or novel is entertaining. Its purpose is to be entertaining. That doesn't mean that the other kinds of books, like a prescriptive nonfiction, is not entertaining. Malcolm Gladwell is very entertaining, but it's not a narrative memoir. In fact, a book like Malcolm Gladwell, for instance, actually speaks very little of his own experience. A narrative memoir or novel is purely the human experience. It is a deep look and deep introspection into what makes us all connect as souls, connect in this human journey. And while there are many templates that can be called like the 5-act or the 3-act template that we can see in Shakespeare or in movies, they all have one universal theme, which is the hero's journey. And I am a big advocate and a big fan of Joseph Campbell's work. He was a mythologist, a person who studied the myths of all the world. And he found that, in fact, every language, every story, every folklore, every canon, every Bible, every story takes the exact same hero's journey, the arc of the hero's journey. Now, I will add my own view on it. The hero's journey very often was a hero that had an externalized adventure. They had to fight the dragon, or they had to kill the monster, or they had to pull the sword out of the stone. Any one of those, something that they had to actively do. For my perspective, we also have a shero's journey. And just like the hero's journey can be male and female, so can the shero's journey be female or male. It's just that there are internal struggles that we need to, when we're looking at the hero's journey and we use the metaphors that Joseph Campbell uses, such as meeting the monster or the dark night of the soul or the gift, we can also use those as just simple metaphors and bring in our own internalized journey. There have been many people who have written about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. In fact, Joseph Campbell just identified that it was there. It's sort of like Isaac Newton didn't invent gravity. He just identified that this thing was there called gravity and that there were laws around it, universal laws around it. Same thing with Joseph Campbell. The hero's journey already existed. And if you, now that you're going to learn it, if you look at every movie, every famous book, every story that you've ever seen, and look at it through the eyes of plotting it on the hero's journey, you'll actually see that just like gravity, the hero's journey exists everywhere. We're just now becoming aware of it. So with that, if you're ready to go, it's the hero's journey is just really telling the story of being human. So if you follow this journey, your readers will recognize themselves, and regardless of whether they've walked in that journey or walked in your shoes. And I'm going to interchange as I go through this between talking about the hero or you, because I don't know necessarily if you're writing a memoir or a novel. Very often people write a fictitious memoir, a story of their own life that they've fictionalized. They've changed the names, they've changed the identities. It works the exact same way, the same arc. And while what I'm going to give you is the classic order of the hero's journey, feel free to shuffle some of those challenges, considerations, some of the elements. Feel free to shuffle those around as they fit to your story. But you may actually, in deeper introspection, look and find that you also actually had your own hero's journey that does actually fit the classic format, and you may not have identified it yet, just like gravity. Life actually goes in a hero's journey. But you can move the plot points so that you can create more tension during certain times that may not have been reflected in your actual journey. And if you're writing fiction, you can consider plotting your story using the narrative arc and character development. Also, so if there are different characters that you're delving into their mind, their thoughts, which you can't do with a narrative memoir when you're just giving your own thoughts. If you're writing fiction, you can now weave as if a multiverse of a few different characters' descriptions into their own hero's journey. But each of them has to have their hero's journey as well. Now, one final point before we actually get into the actual hero's journey is, if you're writing a memoir, just choose one period of your life to focus on. You can give a little bit of a background detail to the rest of the elements of your life, but just give one snapshot of one hero's journey, one thing that you were looking to overcome. And I did say just one more thing, but I'll retract that. A second thing. Here's why it's so important to know your hero's journey. Even if you're writing one of the books that we discussed previously, the prescriptive nonfiction or the teaching memoir, in fact, any book that you're writing, every time you introduce a new story, it actually falls into a minimized version of the hero's journey. So even if you're giving, like I gave the example of Malcolm Gladwell, even if he's speaking about someone else, every chapter that's making the point, giving the wisdom that he's conveying, giving the university studies or the academic wisdom, he's prefacing it with a hero's journey for that character. So whether it be a research professor that came across some recent discovery, but it was blocked because the university wasn't willing to fund it. He's actually building a story arc into each of those chapters, into each of those studies. So the hero's journey is quintessential in every kind of writing. And with that, we'll proceed. Step one of the hero's journey is the hero is in the ordinary world. This is where you are giving a glimpse of yourself, or the hero. As I said, I will interchange those two throughout. You're giving the reader a chance to be introduced to your ordinary world. This is where you're giving them the reflection of you being naive or unaware of the greater forces out in the world that are at odds, or even being unaware that there was a clash going on outside of your inner world. This is the before picture. If you were to tell a story about a physical transformation, this would be the before picture of being lethargic, overweight, shy, and quiet. Painting it in a loving way, showing the reader something about you so that they can clearly understand what the prize is that you're promising by the end of the book. What it is that your hero, your main character of the book, your protagonist, or yourself, if it's a memoir, what it is that you didn't realize you didn't have. And you seed the prize. What is it that you actually want? In seeking this is how we know what the end of the story will look like. What is the prize that we are winning at the end of the story? And once the reader is invested in that, they're willing to take on the next step. From there, the hero moves to, the call to adventure. So the hero or yourself is forced from your ordinary world. Something changes. And we can all relate to that. Whether it's an internal world, a decision, a no more, a standing up for something, or an external world, a divorce, being fired from a job, a natural catastrophe, changing homes, something changes. And it could be even a loved one dying. And because of that external change, a whole world is different on the internal world. And this is where you share, this is the hero's journey, and definitely in a Shiro's journey, in the feminine journey, the internal world is really the focus. But now the hero has seen too much to stay in that naive world of the ordinary world. This is where they make the decision. Something has got to change. This is where you make the decision. Something has got to change. Now, at the same time, the next step is that you are completely faced with this difficult choice, torn between all the reasons why it would be better to stay comfortable, to stay in your own bubble, to not emerge from the chrysalis. After all, being a caterpillar is just great on this leaf. Though in that refusal for the call, you start to notice how that leaf is inhospitable, how the pain of staying on that leaf, the pain of staying in that chrysalis is now getting to be so much that even if you're refusing it at first, you decide that you have to continue on your journey. Even though that seems scary and dangerous and unknown. But the promise of that prize is worth whatever danger you might encounter. So eventually you make the decision to leave or to change or to set out onto that unknown journey. Now, as luck would have it, or as great storytelling would have it, along your way comes a mentor who gives you some sort of information, some sort of gift. And often they know a little bit more. So it's a coach or a guide of some kind, someone who's been on that journey already, someone who you look at and they have the prize that you want, or at least they know how to get it. The mentor offers the wisdom in the form of words, teachings, magical powers, or tools that will help you as the hero along the way. Now, once we've seen the help from the outside, while simultaneously reaching inside of their internal world, the reader is now along for the journey. This is where Yoda comes in. And it doesn't have to be many words of wisdom or large texts of wisdom. It could be as simple as one statement. And you can interject whatever Yoda statement sounds the best here. And I'd actually recommend that right now, as you're writing, write a Yoda statement here. and write who that Yoda is. And then as we go in and do the writing exercise in just a few minutes, that will help you mark your place. Now the hero is along the way. They have the information and they're looking for the prize, or I shouldn't say they, you are looking for the prize, leaving the ordinary world and entering into the extraordinary world, the world that you've never known before. Little did I know. How could I have ever known? And you cross the threshold into a new magical awareness, a different norm, a different value, a different expectation, a different way of living. Now, here there might be what's called threshold guardians. There might be people, beings, events that challenge the heroes or your resolve. Like, I committed to that. But even once I committed, this stopped me, and this stopped me, and this stopped me. In the writing of this, the guardians, this is actually foreshadowing. It's a literary technique that we use called a metaphoric foreshadowing. It could be as simple as adding humor. I made the commitment that I was going to leave, but now I had to find my car keys. Now, that might not seem like a very wise and brilliant metaphor, but when you insert that here, finding the leitmotif or the metaphor, the continual metaphor later on, something to do with a key that may open the door, you've marked it now. You've created a magic now. You've given the reader something to grasp onto, to see. And as you continue along the way towards your prize, you are now in this completely new world. And there are challenges, and there are allies, and there are enemies. And this is an escalation of all those complications. Early deaths, meaning this is not death, but it's a death of the psyche, a death of the ego, a death of what you thought you knew, a death of the plans that you had made. The hero developed relationships here with characters. Some of those characters are instrumental in guiding the hero forward into the world that you have entered. Some will be helpful. Some will be under the guise of being helpful, but are really there to thwart your way, what we call frenemies. Every setback, or what's called an early death, strengthens the resolve of you as the hero, as the shiro of the story. Because no setback can hold you down for long. And as you write through that power, you'll find that power to continue on the journey. Every choice brings you to the next choice. And then you come for the greatest trial, the approach. This is the greatest complication to the point of crisis. This is where we call it the climax of the story. You've built tension and built tension and built tension, and there is the prize. You can see it right there, but you're not there yet. This is the approach. The aircraft hasn't landed on the tarmac yet. The wheels are down. The path is laid. And it's critically the most important part of the story. But you're not quite there yet. This is where you call upon those alliances that you made in that previous step. It's where you put in the knowledge of the previous tests. It's where you may want to turn back, but the lesson that you learned from that enemy just a step before, or the frenemy, turns you around because you know what it is that you're going for. And you know who to trust and who to lean on, whose wisdom to follow. And with that, you come in for the ordeal. This is the landing. You confront your greatest fear. The fear is the exact antithesis of the greatest prize. Joseph Campbell said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." So the treasure is through this cave. The choice must be made. You're standing at the door of the cave, and you've got to make the choice that you're going to walk in. And that means a dark night of the soul. It could mean death. And when we say death, it's not the physical body, but it's the death of an identity, a thing that you thought you were, a psyche, a way that you've painted your life or yourself in your own eyes. You are no longer that person. This is the critical choice now you're walking through. And that you had held on to for so long dies at this threshold. Now, that makes for a great story, but that's not the end of the hero's journey. Now, you've gotten into the cave. You're facing your greatest fear. And you found that thing, that prize that you were looking for, whether it's to reclaim your sovereignty as a free person, whether it be that it's the trip that you wanted to take, whether it be that it's your goal weight on the scale, whether it be that you've overcome some disease, there is the most long thing that you've wanted right there. But you're still inside the darkness of the cave. You're still in the unknown. You still don't know how you're going to come out, and there are dangers lying ahead. So this is actually now we've got to bring you back out into the light. So the road back. So now you're driven to complete the journey. In fact, you could actually want to end this story here. And that would be perfectly natural to want to end here. Give up the known world that you had come from, and just stay here in this unknown world, because the road back is, you have the prize already. You are already contained within the prize, but you know you can't enjoy the prize until you've come back to share it with others, to share it with home, to share it with the known and the unknown world. Consider in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy had to come back to Kansas in order to appreciate the farmhands who were helpers, and the auntie and the home and everything around her. She could not have continued to enjoy life in Oz because that wasn't where she belonged. She had to come home with this prize. And after that, there is the resurrection. So this is a death and a rebirth. So you must die once again, just before coming, because the realization that the people who are in your ordinary world, in your home, in the life that you experienced inside that cave, battling your demons and slaying your own dragons, understand that they weren't part of that journey. So it's, as an act of purification, there is one more death and rebirth that you have to go through before going home. And that is the solemn promise to yourself that your world is reconciled, that your journey is complete, but they might not get it. And that's okay, because this is your journey, not theirs. And then you enter back into your known world, back into where you started, no longer naive, no longer unaware. You've transcended the fear and the death, and the hero, the Shiro, has been transformed internally and externally. You're coming back possessing something new, whether it be the prize in your hand, like a ring or a sword or a stone or a dragon, or a new prize internally, like your self-esteem and your va-va-va-voom and your laughter and your joy and your ecstasy. And that is where the hero's journey ends. And with that, we're going to try this out. Yes, we're going to try this as a writing prompt. We're going to try writing your hero's journey. Now, if you're writing fiction, write it as a character. They say write what you know, and I want to just preface that by saying everybody is always writing what they know, and they're giving themselves permission to go into the worlds that they don't know. But within every fictional story, there's a thread of humanity. So even if you're writing this journey as a fictional story, take the characters, the heroes arc right through. So with that, I'm going to turn off my camera so that it's not distracting. And get yourself ready. Have your pen and your paper handy, your pen and your notebook, and begin writing. In my ordinary world, I am outside of my comfortable circle. What I didn't know was one day I realized that I could have, and then name that prize that you really wanted. Is there more than one thing that you realized that you could have? Write a few things. Make a list of all the prizes that you want. And you may find that one of those lists, one of those items in the list becomes higher, more important than the others. When you realize what it is, the prize that you most want, what you want to win at the end of your story. Something happened when you realized that. Something happened in your external world. What was that? What, did somebody in your life that you loved die? Did you lose a job? Did you move locations? Was there a pandemic? What happened in the external world? Something burnt down. Or was it just something on your interior world, your internal world? Did something happen internally? And something has to change, right? What is it that has to change? Now we move to the refusal. And as much as you know that where you are is no longer satisfying or comfortable or hospitable to you, even then you're torn at first because you don't know where you're going to go. Why would you decide that that's too scary? What are you thinking when it's too scary? But how much more do you want the prize than the fear? And this is where we move into the meeting the mentor. Did that mentor help you make the decision to set off on that journey? And if so, what did the mentor give or say or do to make that decision for you? Did they give you a tool or magical powers? Simultaneously, with that help from the outside, did something trigger within you that you became your own source of wisdom? What did you hear in your own mind? And as you, the hero, the Shiro, enters into a new world, noticing the different norms, the mores, the different values and expectations. How do you navigate this? What are you noticing? What's different in this world? Does it smell different? Does it sound different? Is there a whole new language to explore? A new technology to learn? Paint the picture of how this world looks different than the world you've experienced before. And find, were there some differences in that world that created a complication for you? Did you know how to navigate certain things? Did you know the directions? Did you know how to ask in a different language for what you needed? Write those complications. Did you trip because you couldn't find the light switch? Write those complications. Get to know those complications. Get to know the challenges you have in the new world, because those challenges are a foreshadowing for what's to come. Now, along the way in this new world, there were some allies and some enemies who came in. Write their names. People who, in this new world that you didn't know the language or the direction, people who came to help you. Some of them were very helpful. Write their names. What did they look like? If you don't remember their name, give them an identity of some sort. The driver, the horseman, the cashier behind the counter. Those are there as your allies protecting you along this journey in your unknown world. So that the journey, while it looks promising, it's still very daunting. Now, were there some people who were enemies or frenemies? People along the way who looked like they would be helpful and you trusted them because in this unknown world, you didn't know who to trust or who not to trust. And write those people's names down. And if you can't think of their names, or if you don't know their names, write them as an identity. The orchestrator, the dictator, Ursula. These enemies are also foreshadowing for you. Both the helpers and the hindrances, the allies and the enemies were put there on your journey to learn what to look for, to learn the clues of this unknown world. And now, what is the greatest trial that you had to overcome in this unknown journey, in this unknown world? What was the thing that made you most want to turn back and run to the comfort of your old world? What was the thing that you were looking at and that you knew you had to confront, but it took all your will and all your courage to confront that thing? And continue. Bring in the help of the alliances, the friends, the helpmates, the driver, the horseman, the cashier. Bring in their words, here to support you. Or if they gave you a gift or an amulet or a key or a token or a necklace or a coin, what were those things? Name them now. Those are here for you to muster your courage to face your greatest fear. You are now smack in the midpoint from the non-ordinary world, and you face your greatest fear. This is the opposite of the prize that you want. Whatever it is that you want, this is the furthest point away from the prize. You don't think you can get through this. You descend and hit bottom. You feel completely lost and you've hit the bottom. And from here, a new choice must be made. There is no other choice but to climb out of this. What is that choice for you? And the moment you've identified what you're willing to do at that choice moment, That is when you win the prize. This is the prize that you were looking for right at the beginning of the story. And now you have it. But you can't even enjoy it yet. You found it. You may not recognize that you found it, but you picked up something. Something is in your hand now, or in your body, or in your knowledge. Something has become different about you. What is that thing? Because now you're going to journey back with that thing to the known world. Knowing that you can't enjoy your prize until you return home to your ordinary world. You continue, and you continue now with an urgency, because you got to get home or your whole journey has been for nothing. And even now, when obstacles arise, and they will, mirroring the ones that came up earlier, whether it be the lost car keys or the traffic jam or anything that happened at the beginning, will once again happen here, because you are a reflection, and those setbacks will happen, but the trajectory is to home. And because you're on a straight line to home, those setbacks don't even bother you anymore. They're there, but you have your prize, and you're coming back home. And just before you enter, just at the doorway, at that threshold, you have one more devastatingly difficult trial. What is that? Is it the funeral? Is it looking into your child's eyes and telling them what you just experienced? Is it coming to the hospital and closing the eyes of your parent who's just died? This is your act of purification, your last sacrifice. You fought the greater forces that were at odds in your world, and you're reconciled, and now your journey is complete. As you finish your story, you bring the prize home. You've been transformed internally, externally. There's changes in you, in your hero, in your shiro, as they re-enter the normal world. And people say there's something different about you. What is that thing they're saying is different about you? Write that. See it. Sense it. Is it your physical body? Is it your hairstyle? Is it your clothes? Is it the colors you've chosen to wear? Or is it something else? Are they saying that there's something about you that is different that they can't put their finger on? A certain energy and essence, a je ne sais quoi. And you know what happened on the journey. You have triumphed over the greatest trial that you could ever face. You won the prize. You've become a completely different version of yourself through the challenge. But the people who are in your old life, they don't need to know that. In fact, they can't know that. And you are once again in your old life, but you are seeing it as if for the first time. So write that. What does your old life look like as if for the first time? What does your old life look like as if you're seeing it for the first time? You're seeing this with new eyes. Your old life does not look the same to you because you have new eyes. So how does it look different?
Thank you.
Again, think of Dorothy in Wizard of Oz. She's returned to Kansas and she's looking around in wonder and with marvel in her eyes, with such appreciation for what had previously been what she considered boring farm life in Kansas. And she's looking now with new eyes at the heart and the brains and the courage and the love and the goodness. So what do you see in your old life that you're seeing with fresh eyes? That just like the people for Dorothy in Kansas, they didn't think there was anything different about them, but she did. So what do you see different today because of the journey that you experienced? And as you're finishing up describing what it is that you see today, just remember, you fought for this prize. You journeyed for this prize. You fought the dragons, slayed the monster, overcame whatever internal fears you had to get that prize. And now that you're back in the old world, the ordinary world that you started in, you're looking around, you realize it was never about the prize. It was never about the shoes. It was always about the journey of who you became along the way. So now, as you're finishing, I'll just give you a few moments of silence. Who did you become along the way? You can start that by repeating the sentence, I became, and repeat that.